The doors to the Viridian Tea House are open once more. Hello, everyone. It's been a while, and for those of you who don't know, I recently returned to corporate. So I am working for a financial institution here in Colorado, and I'm working in their BSA AML department as an associate, and I'm really, really happy about the job. I have completed my first week, and I made it out more than alive. So I am extremely grateful for this financial institution to offer the job to me, and I'm really excited about this new chapter in my life. Now, so far I've had one friend ask me, well, are you still going to make tea? Yes, I'm still going to make tea. I'm still going to write books. In fact, I'm still currently working on my werewolf book at the moment. But this is just a new addition to my life, and I feel very good about it, and I'm full of gratitude. But I have two or three. I'll see how I feel. Right now, I definitely have two books that I want to review, written by two men that I adore in various ways. And so when I was trying to figure out what to review today, I thought I already had a couple of books lined up, but then I said, no, I want to get to these first. So the first book is written by an actor that I remember seeing in a movie called Princess Daisy, inspired by the book by Judith Krantz. I think that was the author. And I was just struck by Rupert Everett's looks and his charm and how he spoke, very British. And I was like, I really, really like this guy. I love his acting. I have a thing for British actors. I don't know what it is. So I knew that he was a writer, but I'd never read any of his work until the new book, The American No Stories, came out. And many thanks to Arapahoe Libraries for having this book. So I said, you know what? I've never read his work before, but that's going to change. I'm going to read his work now. Wow. Rupert Everett is an amazing actor, and everything. He's one of those kinds of people where everything he does is going to be phenomenal, and you're just going to want more. And that's how I felt with The American No. So let me read the dust jacket for you. In his first glorious collection of stories, Rupert Everett takes us on exhilarating journeys with a cast of extraordinary characters. No kidding. A darkly humorous tale of a chaotic and emotional funeral in Paris. Oscar Wilde's Last Night in Paris, vividly evocative, unflinching, and elegiac. A Russian-American countess who confronts the realities of sex and age in a village tea shop. That was really good too. The ferociously unforgiving world of a Los Angeles talent agency and the unexpected twist that launches a completely different kind of career. The deathbed confession of a woman who left 1850s England for India, never to return. A story of immigration, love, and grief. And a beautifully touching portrayal of Marcel Proust's creative life and childhood. Brilliantly witty and tender stories drawing from the wealth of film and TV ideas Everett has worked on over the course of his illustrious career, The American No will delight and surprise his many fans. And yes, if you love Rupert Everett's acting and you've read his other books before, you're going to love The American No. And for those of you who don't know who Rupert Everett is, Rupert Everett shot to fame with the film Another Country in 1984 and has been a successful actor and writer for many years. His films include My Best Friend's Wedding, Shakespeare in Love, The Madness of King George, Napoleon, and many more. He is the author of 2 novels, 3 works of nonfiction, and a collection of short stories. He lives in London and New York. And so I was trying to figure out, let me just back up a little bit. So Rupert Everett is one of those writers that's very Proustian. And you know, or if you don't know, I am obsessed with Marcel Proust. I am absolutely obsessed with that man. And anytime that there's a writer that I come across and I'm reading his works and it's like, you remind me of someone. Oh, Marcel. Yeah, you do. And Rupert Everett reminds me of Marcel Proust in so many ways. Just his descriptions of people, the descriptions of scenes, the emotion coming out of those people and scenes, how every little detail means something. And there's the humor, there's the black comedy, there's the tragedy, there's the love, there's a lot of gay sex. There's just a lot of sex, period. Gay, heterosexual, there's a lot of sex in this book. But it's not grotesque. You're not like, oh God, can we just hurry up? It is a part of the story, and it adds the flavor, that little extra flavor to the story. But just overall, this book does receive from Viridian Tea House 5 pots of excellent tea. I just enjoyed. I more than enjoyed these stories. So I actually want to read a couple of parts to you. Just you can get the idea of how Rupert Everett writes and thinks. So the first piece is very short, but it is titled The American No. The American No, a phrase originally coined by a producer friend with a gallows sensibility. In show business, particularly in the world of pitching, here's what happens. We achieve a meeting, no mean feat in itself. Then, if we're an actor, we appear in a room of executives to pitch our story. If we're surfing in on the wave made by a successful movie, we can behave anywhere we like, possibly even passing out during the pitch. It will be written off as part of our star quality, our raw talent finding its way. However, if we aren't writing in on a hit, my lot, except for once, don't be late. Have fun, but not too much. Be thankful, but don't go down on all fours. Make it vivid. Be prepared for questions and qualms. Normally the meetings go well, but don't be fooled by everyone's casual manners or dazzling smiles, particularly in America. There are codes of behavior in Hollywood more complex and nuanced than attempting to do business as a geisha. That line made me crack up. It really did. Let's do this. I'm psyched. We love you here at Bottomy Bay Productions, they say, walking you out, arms slung casually over your shoulder. You leave the meeting walking on air. It's in the bag. Then you never hear another word. It's called The American No. When I read that, I was like, I know I'm going to love this book. And so the other part I want to read to you, this is from the story 10-Pound Palm, which I have to say is one of the best short stories I've ever read in my life. And there may be 3 or 4 short stories where I'm just, my breath is taken away. And this was one of them. And this is the section I wanted to read to you. So basically, it is about a young man who pretty much loses it all. He's British aristocracy, but he kind of sort of loses it all. And what little is left, he gets rid of it because he wants a fresh start in Australia. And so his aunt and his nurse see him off, and he travels all those weeks to Australia. And I won't give any more away, but like I said, it's one of the best stories I've ever read, and it's very Proustian. You can't help but fall in line with Tom Walker. You can't help but be caught up in the emotions of everyone that's in this story, who Tom interacts with, who's good, who's bad, who's on this trip to Australia for whatever reason, and even Tom's reasons for going to Australia. So this is the part I want to read to you. He made a last tour of the house, the furniture sold, the carpets taken up or burned. His footsteps echoed across time and the empty rooms. Strange shadows were seared into the walls where once the family portraits hung, pale shapes on old wallpaper. With a shiver from the top to the bottom of his spine, one of those spasms that set one's head nodding, he realized that he and the house were inseparable, indistinguishable, the stone and the flesh. He was the house, and the house was him. Would he ever be able to get these ancient slabs off his back? Or would he buckle under the strain of them forever? He leaned his face against the cold stone wall. I'm a ghost, he whispered. let me go. Absolutely beautiful. The American No Stories by Rupert Everett. Everybody needs to read this book. Everyone. I just, if you are into literary fiction or if you just like a good collection of short stories, The American No is the way to go. And like I said, it does receive 5 pots of tea from Viridian Tea House. Excellent, excellent job. And he's one of those authors where I'm adding it to the list where I really want to collect everything he's ever written, quite honestly. The man has a way with words, and it is so obvious with The American No. So, Mr. Everett, if you are watching this video by any chance, thank you so much for this. And so refreshing. I would love to have a cup of tea with you sometime and just talk. Just talk. That's all I want to do. But many thanks. And many thanks to Arapahoe Libraries for having the book too. All right, so the second book is written by a man that I adore because he gave me and the world Holly Golightly. I'm talking about Truman Capote, and with his final unfinished novel, Answered Prayers. So I watched was it Hulu or Netflix? It was one of the streaming services. Truman versus the Swans or something like that, and learning about the Swans of New York and how he got in with them and what he did to betray them and how they never forgave him except for maybe one. And this was the book that caused the problems. So from what I remember, he was riding high off of Breakfast at Tiffany's, Holly Golightly, and In Cold Blood, and I forgot his other works, but he kept talking about this book, Answer Prayers, Answer Prayers. That's the new novel, and his publishing house gave him a huge advance, and unfortunately, he didn't finish it, and he ended up dying, and all we have are 3 chapters. But these 3 chapters make me salivate for more. I was so mad when I finished. I said, what? I added more choice blue words, but I was like, what do you mean this is it? I know it says unfinished, but maybe they were lying, maybe. This book is another version of Marcel Proustian charms, and actually he was trying to channel Marcel Proust. So while Rupert Everett was very British and eccentric in his Proustian way, Truman Capote was very American, wild, bohemian, but still very intellectual, very smart kind of Proustian. So let me read the dust jacket for you. Oh, and that's Truman on the back. All right. During the 20 years since it was first announced, there has been more curiosity and anticipation about Answered Prayers than about any other piece of fiction of the late 20th century. It is perhaps the most famous unpublished novel in contemporary American letters. Again, it just makes me so angry. Shortly after Truman Capote died in August 1984, I was 10 years old at the time, an exhaustive search was made of all his efforts. Nothing pertaining to Answered Prayers was found, save a few notes, and apparently all that exists of it is what was published in 1975 and 1976 in Esquire magazine. The 3 chapters of the unfinished novel included here are Unspoiled Monsters, Chapter 1, Kate McLeod, Chapter 2, and La Côte Basque, Chapter 7, according to the author. The protagonist of the novel is P.B. James, an amoral bisexual of unknown parentage, who escaped from an orphanage at the age of 13 and has been on the run and on the make ever since. P.B. has always had to live by his wits and charm, and outrageous though he is, it is a measure of the author's skill that P.B. instantly becomes an extraordinarily vivid and amusing character about whom we care. Without going further into the details of the complicated plot, it should be said that these pages are filled with lapidary wit, beautiful and intelligent women, sadistic husbands, entertaining dialogue, a kidnapping, scandalous stories, and some of the best gossip of our times. While it is frustrating to read these 3 chapters because of the reader's sense of what might have been, which is true, I ask myself, what else was Truman supposed to write or going to write with these characters? What else? Let's see. They show the author at the top of his form and make superb reading even as an unfinished mosaic. These pages leave no doubt that if Answered Prayers had been completed, it would have been a justly celebrated novel and one of the biggest bestsellers of its era. And the fact that even today, people are still talking about this novel. And like I said, the 3 chapters that are in this book, what talent. Absolutely, what talent. And about the author, Truman Capote was a native of New Orleans, where he was born on September 30th, 1924. His first novel, Other Voices, Other Rooms, was an international literary success when first published in 1948 and accorded the author a prominent place among the writers of America's post-war generation. He subsequently sustained his position with short story collections, A Tree of Night, among others, novels and novellas, The Grass Harp and Breakfast at Tiffany's. Some of the best travel writing of our time, Local Color, profiles and reportage that appeared originally in The New Yorker, Duke and His Domain, and The Muses Are Heard, a true crime masterpiece in Cold Blood, which I have to admit I've never read the book, but that needs to change. Several short memoirs about his childhood in the South, A Christmas Memory, The Thanksgiving Visitor, and One Christmas, 2 plays, The Grass Harp and the House of Flowers, and 2 films, Beat the Devil and The Innocents. Mr. Capote twice won the O. Henry Memorial Short Story Prize and was a member of the National Institute of Arts and Letters. He died in August 1984, shortly before his 60th birthday. So, I really can't piggyback to what was said on this Dust Jacket. These 3 chapters, I knew that this was unfinished, duh. But I just thought, well, maybe they're not going to be good. Maybe that'll justify. And I finished them and I thought, holy crap, you are a modern Marcel Proust, just like with Rupert Everett, but you make it your own. I could hear his voice, which is funny because one of my favorite movies is Murder by Death, and he plays Lionel Twain. And my boyfriend and I saw it yesterday. I finally own it. And when I saw him, this book and reading it, there was like an added level of significance for me in reading this book and just wanting to read more of Mr. Capote's works, because what genius. True, sheer genius. And I think about the people who were so upset with him because he revealed their dirty little secrets, and he says something to the effect of, I'm a writer. What did you think I was going to do with all this information? But yes, this book was quite a read. And when I finished it, as much as I wanted more, I felt kind of satisfied. So, Answered Prayers by Truman Capote receives also 5 pots of tea from Viridian Tea House. So, to the ghost of Truman Capote, thank you so much for your works. And like I said, I started with Holly Golightly. And, I actually watched the movie first, and then I read the book, and wow, the book is way darker. Audrey Hepburn made it nice and light and fun, but that's a dark story. It really is dark. But oh, Truman, what a writer, what a human, what an individual. Just, if you have read Truman Capote's work but you've not read Answered Prayers, do yourself a favor and go to your local bookstore or your library to see if they have it. And if you have never read Truman Capote before, but you've been wanting to read his work, still, start off with Breakfast at Tiffany's, see how you like it, and then I would say check out Answered Prayers next. So, many thanks, Mr. Capote. Thank you. And I think I'm actually going to review a 3rd book. So, go in my pile here. So this book terrified the ever-living shit out of me. And let's see here. I remember the movie. I watched the movie first, the original movie. And I was like, this is creepy. But then when I read the book, and I just read the book all those years later, I said, this book is absolutely one of the creepiest stories I've ever read in my life. And for me, I know that I do like a good horror story or movie or book or whatever. But when like the gore gets so much, like completely over the top, I start laughing. I'm like, I can't take this seriously. But with this book, there was no gore, there was no creatures or blood running down the walls. But the story, when you read it, it lingers with you and you're just like, shit. This is The Stepford Wives by Ira Levin. This is one of the creepiest books I've ever read in my life. And many thanks to Denver Public Library for having it. So if you don't know the story, let me just read the back of it for you. For Joanna, her husband Walter, and their children, the move to beautiful Stepford seems almost too good to be true. It is. For behind the town's idyllic facade lies a terrible secret, a secret so shattering that no one who encounters it will ever be the same. At once a masterpiece of psychological suspense and a savage commentary on a media-driven society that values the pursuit of youth and beauty at all costs, The Stepford Wives is a novel so frightening in its final implications that the title itself has earned a place in the American lexicon, which is true. How many times have you been that said, like, you look at somebody and like, oh my God, what a Stepford wife. And everybody knows what you're talking about. This book and then the movies that follow the different versions of it. I think there's one with Nicole Kidman in it. Terrifying. This book, I read it in one sitting, terrified me. Absolutely. Because I knew what the big reveal was. But just the buildup, and it's like, as a reader, I try to figure out, okay, when does stuff really start going left? And I was like, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? But terrifying story, absolutely terrifying, but well written, psychologically driven. You just can't look away. And even to this point, the title itself has earned a place in the American lexicon. If I were to go to work tomorrow and be like, oh my God, there's such a Stepford wife, the people around me would be like, really? You think so? Well, I don't know. But I love the story. It was a fantastic and well-written story too. There was no, it was just enough. Like when you get a slice of cake and it's just enough. This was just enough for me. I didn't need to know anything more. And actually, if they had taken out just a teensy bit less, it would have, I think, skewed it a little bit. This was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And it does receive 5 top pots of idyllic Stepford tea. Yeah, what a book. As soon as I finished it, like, I handed it to my boyfriend. I was like, just read it. It's like, I know you know the story, read it. And he enjoyed it too. So many thanks to these 3 authors, living and deceased, for their wonderful, wonderful books. And you can get all those books at your local library or at your independent bookstore. So yay, reading. Right, so the tea for today, since I've talked for 24 minutes. Ooh. My tea for today is one of my blends, and that means it's been steeping for quite a while, so it's going to be very pungent, but I don't mind. This is Hattie Mae and LC, and those are my grandparents back in the 60s, I think, on the label. So I was very close to my grandparents, and after they passed, may their memories forever be a blessing, And then when I started this tea company, I said, you know, I need to have a tea blend for them. You know, they weren't perfect, but I love them so much. And in fact, I gave a bag of this to one of my coworkers and I said, yes, this was inspired by my grandparents. So the ingredients are black tea or Assam, dried lemon peel, ginger, and dandelion leaves. My parents were very grounded people, very salt of the earth, just what you see is what you get. And that's what I wanted to have in this blend. A little bit of spice, a little bit of groundedness, and overall just mellow. What you see is what you get. There's no surprise. Enjoy. So from me to you in my spring Snoopy cup, a little bit of Hattie Mae and LC. I'm definitely getting, well, of course, the Assam, the mild malty taste to it, but the lemon and the dandelion I'm getting. The ginger, not so much, but as I've always said, when my tea cools down, certain ingredients go up and others kind of go down, but still a very smooth tea. And I really thought that with me steeping the tea so long that the tannins were going to come out and it was going to make it bitter, but not so. This is a very smooth, well blended cup of tea. Now I'm getting more of the lemon peel. Ginger still hasn't shown up yet, but I have hope. And so all we have left before I send you back out to your corners of the universe is a little bit of tea or water breathing meditation. So you know the drill, I'm not going to go through it. And make sure that you have a glass of your water or your favorite tea nearby. And let's begin. And now let's end this breathing meditation with a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Slowly open your eyes or allow your eyes to come back into focus. And now let's have a sip of your water or tea. Okay, now I'm getting more of the lemon and the ginger. Funny how tea works. It's amazing. So that's all I have for today. Many thanks to Ira Levin, Truman Capote, and Rupert Everett for their wonderful books. Many thanks to all of y'all for watching these videos whenever I record them. And also many thanks to my grandparents, Hattie, Mae, and Elsie. Thank you so much for being in my life. I miss you and I love you. So until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Raise your teacup high. And remember that to drink tea is to enjoy life. I will see you guys really soon. Bye for now.